All right, solidifying the Super Bowl champ Philadelphia Eagles. They have about 17 million in effective cap space, which is cap space after all the draft picks are used and they fill out their roster to 53 players. That's a decent amount. So they can make some moves, but they also have a lot of players going out. So it makes sense that they have some money to work with. So the needs I've addressed are linebacker, guard, edge rusher, wide receiver, and then maybe cornerback. That's in order of most to least pressing, in my opinion. I think it's pretty definitive that those are the needs, but you could definitely argue for a different order. The first player we're going to bring in is a player Eagles fans probably know pretty well in Dre Greenlaw, the number 2 linebacker for the 49ers. I love the Eagles 49ers beef. Such physical teams, such talented teams, and I think this would be a nice little wrinkle to that. And he's just also the best player to bring in for them, in my opinion. Greenlaw would fit perfectly with the replacement of Zach Bond because Greenlaw is not quite as good as Bond was for this past year. But who's to say if Bond's even going to be that good again at any point in his career? So we at least know with Greenlaw that when healthy, which is a bit of a question mark because he is coming back from an injury, he is one of the best linebackers and very much so deserving of being a linebacker one. And he'll do so with his great coverage ability, which plays nicely off of Nakobe Dean, who is a really good run defender and a great pass rusher as well. He's not bad in coverage, but he doesn't specialize in it. Greenlaw does, and I think it would just be such a great marriage of skills. So they would blend together really nicely and cover each other very well. Sort of like Bond and Dean were doing this past year. So I think Greenlaw would be a great addition. In the past 2 years of full seasons, he has an 80 and 83 PFF grade in coverage, which is elite. Zach Bond, for reference, had a 91 this past year, which was far and away the number one linebacker coverage grade. But, you know, I'll take an 80 and 83 any day of the week. Greenlaw is very affordable too. He would be projected to be a 1 year, $6 million contract. So that's very affordable. And yeah, I think he's just going to overall supply a lot of value and basically be Zach Bond light in a lot of ways, which, I'll take that player any day. The next player we'll bring in is Kevin Zeitler, the right guard for the Lions. Zeitler ranked 19th in pass blocking for guards, second in run blocking, and third overall. So, all really good stats. The only thing that works against him is he's a bit old, but that's factored into his contract. He is 340 pounds, so he's massive, which fits nicely with what the Eagles have already established, being, a really physical, heavy offensive line. He doesn't have the movement skills of basically any of the other Eagle players, as when he came into the league, he ran a 5.4 40, but 40 times are not the most relevant for offensive lines. That's just to give you like a bit of an idea as to the player he is. He's not like a super athletic offensive lineman like, 4 of the 5 linemen for the Eagles are, but he's very aware and he knows how to run block, as evident by him being second in run blocking in the league for guards. That's really good. And I think that's mostly what you need to focus on for a guard for the Eagles because yes, you do want the capabilities to expand the playbook and get Hurts involved as a passer, but At the end of the day, your ideal game script is going to be ground and pound with Barkley and Hurts, and Zeitler is going to enable that, honestly, even better than Becton was. So I think Zeitler would be a great addition, and he's very affordable as well. He's 1 year, 6.25 million for his projection. So you can definitely afford that if you're the Eagles. And the next player would be to replace Josh Sweat, and it would be DeMarcus Lawrence, a player, again, that the Eagles should know pretty well because Lawrence has been a Cowboy for tons of years. I don't know how many exactly, but seems like for my entire life, basically. I'm 25, so that's not true whatsoever, but just roll with it. Lawrence is an early down, great run defender that also has some capabilities as a pass rusher, but I don't think you need him to do that because Jalix Hunt and Bryce Huff, if he remembers how to play football, will be really lethal as, pass game wreckers. So Lawrence can be somebody that just establishes the edge and, on plays where they do pass on early downs, he is going to have some capabilities there as well. But just overall, I think he's mainly going to be a guy that, ensures that other teams can't run. Assuming, Lawrence comes back to health, which again, you do have that risk. All these players do carry some risk more than, maybe the average free agent would, but that's why they're able to afford them. You can't have everything work your way. You can't have these spotless players and be able to afford them on the low. So Lawrence, he is a little bit of a concern because he is coming back from injury. But if he can play anywhere like he was pre-injury, he's going to be a great bargain. I couldn't really find a wide receiver that I like too much for the role of the Eagles. The only thing that kind of made sense to me, at least with price being factored in, was Mike Williams. But PFF projects he's going to get like a 1 year, $6 million contract. That's not a bad price. But if you're the Eagles, I think I'd kind of just rather roll with Jahan Dotson for basically nothing on his rookie deal than bring in Williams on that kind of big deal. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. Williams definitely would make sense because you have AJ Brown on the outside, Williams on the other side, and Devonta Smith as the slot. If Mike Williams can just be reminiscent of what he once was, that's really difficult to cover because Brown, he's a great deep ball threat, but he can do everything, really. Mike Williams, I would say he's kind of limited to just being a deep ball threat, but, Devonta Smith, he can do great route running, be an intermediate threat, and he can win deep as well, as evident by him sealing the Super Bowl. So there is, some merit to Mike Williams, but I think that's a move I would kind of just be a little bit hesitant behind because, again, we are bringing in a lot of players that have some risk associated with them. I say some risk. Every player has a risk, of course, but again, it's more than usual. And Mike Williams would be maybe the riskiest of all of them because he was not good last year. I think the Steelers should have used him more because their wide receivers are terrible, but it's hard to really feel confident in a guy that just has not produced at all in the past year and is coming back from an injury that directly goes against what he wants to do with him being that jump ball receiver. So I would be a little bit hesitant, but I would definitely understand that move because again, you know, teams loading up the box, playing cover 1, cover 3, not having safety help over top, you can have a very dangerous deep passing game with Williams and Brown on the outside. But I think Johnson, does not similar things, but he does things you can work with at, like a sixth of the price, probably. So the next player I want to talk about is Jonathan Jones, the cornerback for the Patriots. I've been a big Jonathan Jones guy for a couple years now. I think he has been tasked with doing a lot of super difficult things in the Patriots system, and that's not entirely relevant now because he's not the player he once was. He was kind of being reduced in his role as the year went on, which was also kind of partly a Christian Gonzalez thing because Gonzalez is so good. So I don't want to say that it's entirely on Jones, but I think, you know, you want to factor in that he is 31, so he might be slowing down. And that's the reason we bring in Jones in the first place, is because in the absolute terms, the Eagles don't need a corner whatsoever, unless it's like, a fourth corner, but you're just bringing in a guy for depth at that point. That's just kind of whatever. But the thing is, Slay is 34. Darius Slay is a fantastic corner, one of the best corners of this generation. But 34 is the age where you're just really going to hit the end of your career, probably. So I want to have a little bit of insurance for that and insert another old corner, funnily enough, in Jonathan Jones. Jones, I think, would have new life in Philly because, just talent wise, if you didn't know this, the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles are a lot better than the 4-win New England Patriots. So that helps. But also, scheme wise, Jonathan Jones was in a lot of man coverage, and he was doing so in the outside and from the slot as well. So that's even trickier. You're not really planned for anything in particular. So you're doing a little bit of everything. The Eagles would be basically the opposite of that. They run an average amount of man coverage. They have, again, a great pass rush that's going to limit how much he has to cover. And he's going to be in a definitive role where he's just going to be outside. Or, if they move DeJean outside, he's just going to be in the slot. So I think Jonathan Jones makes a ton of sense. And in saying that, he still did pretty well for the Patriots in the past couple years. PFF has ranked him as the 78th, 21st, and 38th corner in the past 3 years. I do realize 78 is pretty rough, but, corners are very finicky. They can suck one year and be fantastic the next. And the thing that makes this all make sense to me is, again, the price. That's just a resounding theme here. Jonathan Jones is very solid, I think, as, the third best or fourth best corner. PFF thinks he would only cost $3 million for 1 year. I would bring him in a heartbeat if that's the case, because at a minimum, he's going to be a great depth piece, and he's somebody that can contribute if Slay starts to regress, or, if you want to move players around and get into more dime packages as well. So I think it makes a lot of sense in a lot of different ways. Those are my thoughts on what the Eagles should do in free agency. Be sure to let me know what yours are in the comments section. And also be sure to like and subscribe